Welcome to the Category Mistake. I am your host, Richard Mariello, and I am trying a new system. The system basically is I'm going to record this as a video, and then I'm going to change it to an MP3 and put it on the podcast that way. And I'm also going to post it online for the video people. Hopefully, I get all the kinks worked out, and it actually isn't that horrible. So today I'm going to start doing this podcast every day for a little while. I'm just going to kind of hit it up with a bunch of different things. And today I'm going to talk about songs. I'm just going to talk about one song. It's going to be a quick little 1, 2, 3 podcast type deal. Maybe not 1, 2, 3, but as 1, 2, 3 as I can be. Growing up as a kid, the Beatles were a big thing. And of course, John Lennon, Paul McCartney were big things. But I remember when John Lennon was killed and the big deal it was. And of course, the song they always played was Imagine. And the lyrics struck me kind of funny the other day. I was listening to it because you're in the car and it just comes on and you start listening. And the older I get, the more the lyrics hit you in a different way. I originally listened to it as a teenager, as a kid, or whatever else. It was like, he's talking about the world being no judgment, no nothing. I think it was deeper than that. It probably was for him. If you remember John Lennon, when the Beatles started, it was one thing, and they grew and they changed, and they got into drugs, they got into new age, they got into a lot of different philosophies, a lot of different styles, a lot of different ideas, a lot of different thoughts, a lot of different concepts. And I think towards the end, before he died, he started really going back and re-looking at all the things that he had lived through. And in today's world, there's a lot of Christians who are doing that through deconstruction. And there's a lot of non-believers becoming believers because they're looking into it deeper, and believers becoming non-believers, or however you do that, through the deconstruction and through rethinking concepts that they have read or seen or heard about or lived through. And I was looking at his lyrics, and my thought today was just to read through them real quick and kind of give you a synopsis of what I see it as. Now, this was 1971, so it's about 10 years before he died, before he got killed. But the 70s were weird because the 60s you were getting off your peace love movement, your Woodstock, your craziness. The Beatles broke up. John became a rock legend, rock star, whatever you want to call it. But he had a lot of time where he just kind of did his own thing and he was finding out who he was. So the first verse is, imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us, only sky. And of course, the chorus, imagine all the people living for today. Some say I might be a dreamer. So imagine there's no heaven. It's easy if you try. No hell below us. Above us, only sky. I'm wondering if he was saying that because in the world at the time, and even today, so many people worry about, am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? Am I doing this right? If I don't do this, and this right, I'm never going to become somebody. I'm never going to get to heaven. I'm never going to get to this. If I do this, then I'm going straight to hell. A lot of Christians believe that. They believe, oh my gosh, even though in the Bible, Jesus basically said, everyone's a sinner. Come to me. You'll be forgiven. Judaism, there's ways to get forgiven for your sins. There's no sin that takes you away from God if you're honest and open and ask for forgiveness. I believe in Islam, that's the same thing. Mostly every faith that believes in a heaven/hell/end of life, there's ways of getting back to where you need to be. But a lot of people don't think of it that way. They think of it as, I did something unforgivable and I'll never be forgiven. So they stress out and they do stupid things. So when I think about that, I'm thinking he's telling people to stop worrying about doing the right thing and being so wrong that you're going to hell. Try to live for today. Try to live in the moment that you're living. You're not going to be perfect. Anyway. And then imagine there's no countries. It isn't hard to do. Nothing to kill or die for. And no religion too. Again, back to the religion. But again, if you think about it, 71, Vietnam War. It was a border, Vietnam War was the French occupied Vietnam. Vietnam wrote a Declaration of Independence, basically. The French tried to squash it. The French couldn't squash it. They said, America, save us. We saved you in the revolution. You need to save us. And we went over there and basically people started dying for a small little country that we shouldn't have cared about. And I think Lennon was just saying what a lot of people were feeling. It's like, what's the point of going to war and being killed and dying? And why is my son going over to a country I'll never go to and he'll never visit to save people that don't want us there? Why? And that's and at the time, a lot of people who were drafting the Dodge drafting, or people who were running away, were being called, you're anti-American, anti-God, anti-USA, anti-capitalism, you're a socialist. I don't know. I mean, I didn't run away. I was in the service, but I can see why some people would be like, why do I want to go die over there when there's no reason? And a lot of people who sons and daughters, mostly sons, went over there, they were very super religious, very super pro-American, pro-everything, pro. And it almost was like a stereotype that if you didn't want to go fight, you were anti-God, anti-American, you were communist. And I think Lennon's just kind of going, it's not just that, guys. There's other things in this world going on. You got to think about this. Imagine no possessions. I wonder if you can. No need for greed or hunger. A brotherhood of man. This is a lot of today, if you think about it. I am not for everyone getting a puppy. I'm not for everyone getting, I want a Tesla. You want a Tesla. I'm not Oprahing, turning everything into Oprah here. But even today, in 1970, definitely, there's homeless people. There's people without. There's people starving on the streets. There were veterans. There were women, children, people with nothing. And no one cared. And let's be honest, today, no matter where you are, in America, in Europe, probably in most of Asia, if you drive down the street, you'll see somebody begging for money. And it's sometimes they're shams, sometimes they're scams. I get that. But a lot of times they're not. They're just people who have nothing. And they have nothing because could be they have an addiction problem, could be they have a mental health problem, could be they just had one incident in their life that screwed up everything and they're done. They have nothing left. They can't do anything else with their life. And it's horrible to think, but it's true. The world today, the world for the last 100 years, it makes you're either going to survive or die. Everyone owns things, even in Russia, in the USSR, even during the communist age, even in China, even in, not North Korea probably, because I have no idea, no one really goes there, but North Korea is probably not the greatest place either. But even in communist Soviet Union, there were still people who had and the had-nots. Venezuela, there's have and have-nots. There's never been an actual socialist society that's existed. And all the people say, oh, America's, we're going to be socialists, or we're never going to be socialists. Our schools are a socialist program. A lot of our healthcare is socialist. A lot of our infrastructure is socialist. Social Security, it's in the name, socialist. Food stamps, socialist. All of these things are, we pay taxes to help out those in need. The VA is a socialist program. You pay taxes, the VA helps veterans who need it or who have earned it, who have nothing else. So all these people out there, all you people who think, oh my God, we're never going to be socialists. Socialism is horrible. Use socialism every day. Every day. There's no way around it. So you can say, Lenin was a free-loving hippie and da-da-da-da. He really wasn't. What he was saying is, we got to stop caring about our 4 cars, our 3-car garage, our jacuzzi hot tub, and all this garbage that we do nothing with. I mean, I've seen people who have so much, and when you talk to them about it, they're like, well, I just wanted it, so I got it. Instead of going, what else can I do? Now, there are plenty of people out there who give and give and give and give and give. And that's amazing. Those people are, you go. But I'm just as much to blame as the next person. I have things I don't need, I want. Now, I have given to others. I have helped others a lot. I wouldn't say I'm super awesome at it, but I try to give to people. I try to change my community through my actions. And sometimes it works great. Sometimes I explode, blow up, and nothing good happens from it. But at least I give effort. There are a lot of people out there that don't give any effort because it's all about me, 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 me. This has nothing to do with religion. This has nothing to do with, what political party you're in. This has nothing to do with that. It just, some people just want to give and help and some people don't. There are plenty of rich people who help. There are plenty of rich people who don't. There are plenty of poor people who help. There are plenty of poor people who don't. And that doesn't make them bad people, but like the song kind of says, imagine all the people sharing all the world. It's true. What would happen if we just stopped fighting over stupid? Instead of every year someone spending $1,000 on a new iPhone, don't. Or every year, the economy would go crazy because who knows? Or having your car last longer. Or just simple things like, why are we spending so much effort to make ourselves look better? We spend money to make ourselves look better every day. Why? Are we that worried about being better than our neighbor that we don't ask what we can do for our neighbor? And I think that's a big conundrum we have. And the 70s were the songs of the 70s. We're talking disco, we're talking Bee Gees, there's lots of bad music in the 70s. But I think looking at it, there's music in every decade. There's music in every time period that kind of just epitomizes the human race. And I think this was one of them. Because Lennon had just left the Beatles. The Beatles were done. The world was in tears. The world was in shock. How could the Beatles break up? And Lennon could have gone and just done a poppy song, made his millions, and moved on. Instead, he went anti-war, anti-capitalism, anti-religion in a song, but made it in a way that we could all relate to it. Imagine all the people living life in peace. In my lifetime, the world has never been at peace. And I don't care who's watching this, the world has never been at peace in your lifetime. I mean, I'm a history teacher by trade. Not always the best one, but I am a history teacher by trade. And the world hasn't had peace. During the Roman times, the Romans sometimes would just invade people just to keep sharp. So they would start a war just out of spite. Same with the Spartans, same with the Greeks, same with the Macedonians, same with the Jews / Israel, the Egyptians, the people of this world. We can't stop killing each other, feeling like we need to have ultimate power. So it's crazy because in his song he's saying, imagine life in peace. Living life in peace. It's not going to be actual peace. Can you have peace within yourself? Could you be happy with who you are? Could you be happy with where you are, where you live, who you're with? Could you be happy just breathing? Imagine all the people living for today. Not worrying about tomorrow. Not worrying about tomorrow the gas prices are going to go up, or eggs are going to be $97 a dozen, or something. We can't control tomorrow. I can't. Maybe you can. I can't. I can't control what happens tomorrow. I'm not going to be able to, and I won't. And that's okay. I wish I could, but I can't. And I really don't know what else to say about it other than one day, if you're a Christian, if you're a Jew, if you're Islamic, if you're not, whatever you are, your life's going to come to an end. And depending on what you believe, how you believe, where you believe, you're either going to have an afterlife or you're not. Now, the afterlife, I hope for me, I believe for me, I expect for me, is I'm going to live in heaven where there's no more war. No more war. It sounds stupid. Everyone's like, oh, heaven, no pain, no suffering, no war. We're going to stop killing each other out of spite. There's a war in Ukraine going on right now. The war in Ukraine has nothing to do with, I don't know, it has nothing to do with what war should be fought over. The Ukrainians didn't bomb Russia. The Ukrainians didn't steal Russia's girlfriend. In the 1990s, Ukraine separated from Russia like everybody separated from the USSR. And Putin, President Putin, Vladimir Putin, whatever you want to call him, didn't like it. And he invaded a year ago-ish. He started bombing the bejesus out of Ukraine. Now, might be controversial. I'm not a big fan of the Ukraine. I'm also not a big fan of Russia. Both countries have a horrible history when it comes to how they treat people who are different than they are. If you are white, straight, Ukrainian or Russian, you're good. But if you're female of color or male of color, if you're a different sexual orientation, if you believe in a religion that isn't approved, you're not doing so well there. If you believe that, you know, everyone should just get along and let's just help each other out, you're probably not going to be welcomed in one part or the other. I know some people from that area. And they're like, what are we going to do? One of them literally said to me, he's like, listen, we're sending all these weapons over, because he lives in America now. He's like, we're sending all these weapons over, sending all these tanks. He's like, there's nobody there. They all left. And I said, well, won't they want to come back to fight? He's like, no, they're done. They're not going back. And that's the thing. We're sending millions or billions of dollars worth of equipment, and there's not enough people to even run it. And I'm worried because this is what we did before in the 1930s, and even in World War I, we did it too. We send aid, and then something happens and we send troops and we get ourselves involved in something we shouldn't be involved in. This is a civil war. This is North versus South, and that's all it is. Ukrainians and Russians speak the same language. They have very similar heritage. They've been next door neighbors / one family for a long, long time. And instead of just letting them work it out, everyone has decided that Russia's a bad guy, Ukraine's a good guy. And what I watched today is we're now telling China, okay, don't give Russia weapons. Now you can give Ukraine weapons, but not Russia. Or else. Or else is the scary part. Or else what? What are we going to do? Lennon wrote in 1971, imagine a life in peace. And we're looking to kill each other. I don't want to die in a nuclear war. I don't want to die in a war. I want to die, hopefully older, with my wife, living long after me. But I want to die in my, in a normal way. And I'm worried that if we get into war with China and with Russia and with everybody else, that's not going to happen. In 1971, Vietnam wasn't over yet. It was like halfway done. We got finished a couple years later. Well, we left a couple years later. If Lennon was alive today, he probably would redo this song a little bit for the Ukraine. And I don't think he'd be like, oh my God, I hate the Ukraine. But I think what he'd be is like, why are we sending weapons of mass destruction? Now, I know they're not nuclear. We're sending tanks and rockets and guns and more tanks and more helicopters. We're sending things that kill lots of people at once. To me, that's a weapon of mass destruction. It doesn't have to be nuclear. It has to be something that will kill more than one person at a time. Why are we sending it to people so they can kill each other? We talk about the decency of human life. And we're sending out weapons to kill each other with. And then we're telling people, you can only send these weapons to one side, not the other. I'm tired of watching every day on the news people dying when they don't need to. I'm tired of watching every day the news say, we're not sending troops, but we're sending this. We've sent, I think, about $7 billion of supplies and money to the Ukraine. And I'm wondering, and I'm not trying to be political, what the hell could we have done with that money? Could we have fixed the problem in Africa with lithium mining with children? Could we have fixed the problems in South America with child labor in the Amazon? and the forests being destroyed? Could we have sent money to Flint, Michigan to get a new water supply? Or to Ohio where there's a train derailment and there's toxins going everywhere? Or fixed roads and bridges in Maryland or Virginia or Maine or wherever the heck you live? It's a lot of money. And I know we in America we deal with trillions now instead of billions, but it's a lot of money. And I'm tired of watching the Oscars or the Grammys or the SAG Award or Emmys, and they're all like, stand with Ukraine, and then they belittle other people. Well, we've got to care about, the LGBTQ community. Stand with Ukraine. You can't be LGBTQ in Ukraine. Uneducated people making public statements destroy what we have left of dignity. You can say stand with the Ukraine, please. If you want to do that, great, go for it. But don't say in the same breath LGBTQ rights and Ukraine. You can't do both. Just like you can't say don't buy from Tesla because Elon Musk is a dictator. Buy from Volkswagen, who was set up by the Nazis. Volkswagen has changed. They're not run by the Nazis, but the Nazis used a lot of them. But they're not run by the Nazis. I'm not saying that. I also don't think everyone at Tesla is like Elon Musk. Just because somebody owns a company doesn't mean everybody that works there is like him. Just like everybody at Chick-fil-A probably doesn't think the same way as the owner of Chick-fil-A. And everybody at Target probably doesn't, think the same way as the owner of Target or Starbucks. The owner can be one way, but the employees can be something else. We've got to get over this concept that this one person dictates everything else. It just doesn't work that way. Imagine all the people living for today. Stop trying to live for tomorrow. Stop trying to be something you're not. Stop doing things because you think you're supposed to. I'm horrible at it. My whole life I've been trying to live up to a standard I cannot live up to. And until this past week, I thought I had to. Things changed in my life. I found out a lot of things that I've been pushing for mentally. I didn't need to. My world wasn't the way I thought it was. And now I understand that. I just wish I would have known that 40 years ago. But hey, knowing now is better than never knowing, right? So thank you for watching / listening, participating. I'm going to do this every day for a while. I'm just going to keep posting. Maybe someone will watch, maybe some won't. I'm hoping to get better lighting, better camera. Again, I had one, but I don't know what happened to it. Probably packed it away. I did stop this for a while. I was depressed. I was sad. I was upset. I was fighting some mental demons. And I know maybe not all of you do, but I did. I was fighting, and honestly, I almost lost, but I won. I'm back. I'm here. I'm in one piece. But I'll get into more of that later. Thank you all for your support, and I will be talking to you soon.